The autumn leaves crunched under my worn sneakers as I approached Lincoln Elementary's main entrance, clutching a homemade casserole that had taken me 3 hours to perfect. The parking lot was full of luxury SUVs and pristine minivans, their chrome bumpers gleaming under the afternoon sun like expensive jewelry. My 10-year-old Honda Civic, with its faded paint and small dent from last winter's hailstorm, looked like a tired workhorse among thoroughbreds. The October air was crisp with the promise of winter, and I pulled my discount store cardigan tighter around my shoulders as I watched other mothers emerge from their vehicles. Designer purses, fresh manicures, and clothes that cost more than my weekly grocery budget, they moved with the confidence of women who'd never had to choose between paying the electric bill or buying their child new shoes. My name is Maria Santos, and at 35, I thought I understood my place in the world. I was the single mother who worked double shifts at Ruby's Diner to keep my daughter Sophia in decent clothes and school supplies. I was the woman who clipped coupons religiously and bought generic brands without shame, who planned every purchase around paydays and clearance sales. I was invisible to most people, especially the perfectly polished mothers who ran the PTA at my daughter's school like their own personal social club. But that Tuesday in October changed everything. Sophia had been begging me to attend the PTA meeting for weeks, her brown eyes lighting up with hope every time she mentioned it. "Please, Mom," she'd said over breakfast that morning, carefully spreading peanut butter on the generic wheat bread I bought in bulk. "All the other parents go. Mrs. Peterson says parent involvement is super important for our success, and I want you to meet my friends' moms." The guilt in her voice had broken my heart. At 11 years old, Sophia was already noticing the differences between our family and others. She never complained about our small apartment or the fact that her clothes came from thrift stores, but I could see her watching other children with their name-brand backpacks and after-school activities that cost more than I made in a week. I'd finally agreed, taking time off from my evening shift at Ruby's Diner, time I couldn't really afford to lose, especially with rent due next week. I'd even made my grandmother's famous tres leches casserole for the potluck portion of the meeting, using ingredients I'd saved up to buy over 3 grocery trips. The recipe was a family treasure, passed down through 4 generations of Santos women, and I'd hoped it might help me make a good impression on these intimidating suburban mothers. The school hallway buzzed with conversations as I searched for the meeting room. Groups of mothers clustered together, their designer handbags and fresh manicures telling stories of comfortable lives I could only imagine. They spoke in the confident tones of women who'd never worried about choosing between groceries and gas money. "Maria. You made it." I turned to see Jennifer Walsh approaching, her platinum blonde hair perfectly styled despite the October humidity. Jennifer was the PTA president, a woman who seemed to coordinate school events with the efficiency of a Fortune 500 CEO. Her smile was warm but brief, the kind reserved for acquaintances rather than friends. "Thank you for organizing this," I said, holding up my casserole. "Where should I put this?" "Oh, how thoughtful." Jennifer's eyes barely glanced at my contribution. "Just set it on the dessert table in the back. The meeting's about to start." I made my way through the crowded room, past clusters of women who glanced at me with polite but dismissive smiles. Their conversations centered around weekend ski trips, private tutoring services, and summer camps that cost more than my monthly rent. The dessert table groaned under the weight of elaborate contributions, professionally decorated cupcakes from the trendy bakery downtown, imported chocolates arranged on silver platters, artisanal cookies that probably cost $50 a dozen. My homemade casserole looked humble beside such extravagance, but I'd made it with love and my grandmother's secret ingredients. "Ladies, let's find our seats," Jennifer called out, clapping her hands for attention. I looked around the room, expecting to see the folding chairs typically used for such gatherings. Instead, I saw round tables set with actual tablecloths and centerpieces, each marked with elegant place cards. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a social event designed to exclude as much as include. My stomach sank as I realized every seat had a name card. I walked from table to table, searching for my name, growing more embarrassed with each passing moment. Other mothers settled into their assigned spots, chatting comfortably with their tablemates. Several glanced in my direction with expressions that ranged from pity to mild annoyance. "Excuse me," I approached Jennifer, who was checking items off a clipboard with military precision. "I don't see my name anywhere." Jennifer looked up with barely concealed irritation. "Oh, Maria. I'm so sorry, but we only prepared seating for our regular attendees. You know, the mothers who've been consistently involved in school activities. Her tone suggested this was somehow my fault. But please, feel free to grab a chair from the hallway and sit in the back. The humiliation burned through me like acid, spreading from my chest to my fingertips. Around us, conversations continued as if nothing had happened, but I felt the weight of sideways glances and whispered comments. Several mothers had stopped their conversations to watch this uncomfortable exchange, some with expressions of sympathy but most with barely concealed judgment. I was being treated like a party crasher at my own daughter's school, like someone who didn't understand the unspoken rules of this exclusive community. The message was clear: people like me could send their children here, could work double shifts to afford the fees and supplies, but we couldn't expect to be treated as equals by the women who considered themselves the school's true stakeholders. I understand, I said quietly, though my voice shook slightly and my hands trembled as I clutched my grandmother's casserole. I'll just get a chair. The walk to the hallway felt like a marathon. Every step was a reminder of my outsider status, every glance from the other mothers a confirmation that I didn't belong in their carefully curated world. I could feel my cheeks burning with embarrassment and something deeper, a rage that had been building for years of being overlooked and undervalued. As I walked toward the hallway, I heard Jennifer addressing her inner circle in a voice she clearly thought was low enough to be private. Really, these working mothers think they can just show up occasionally and expect the same treatment as those of us who've dedicated countless hours to this school. It's not about showing up once, it's about consistent commitment and understanding what it takes to run these programs effectively. Her words hit me like a physical blow, each syllable designed to wound. Working mothers. As if my 60-hour weeks were somehow less valuable than their charity luncheons and book clubs. As if my struggle to provide for Sophia while supporting her education was something to be ashamed of rather than admired. As if the sacrifices I made every single day, missing sleep to help with homework, skipping meals to buy school supplies, working holidays to afford field trip fees, somehow counted for nothing because I couldn't attend every committee meeting or volunteer for every bake sale. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. These women had no idea what it cost me to be here tonight, what I'd given up, how much this meant to me and Sophia. They saw only what I couldn't do, never what I was already doing every day to support my daughter's education in ways they'd never have to consider. I grabbed a folding chair from the hallway storage and set it up near the back wall, feeling like a second-class citizen in my own daughter's educational community. The meeting proceeded with discussions of fundraising goals, upcoming events, and budget allocations that seemed designed to exclude families like mine. When Jennifer announced their ambitious plan to raise money for new playground equipment, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Several mothers immediately pledged significant amounts, their voices carrying the casual confidence of people for whom large sums of money represented convenience rather than sacrifice. The Henderson family will contribute $5,000, announced Patricia Henderson, a woman whose husband owned 3 car dealerships across the county. Her diamond earrings caught the fluorescent light as she smiled graciously. And we'll match any donation up to that amount from other families who show the same level of commitment to our children's future. Applause rippled through the room like a wave of approval. More pledges followed in rapid succession, $3,000 from the Johnsons, whose tech startup had recently gone public, $2,000 from the Williamses, who owned the largest law firm in town, $1,500 from the Garcias, who ran a successful chain of restaurants. These were amounts that represented months of my income, casually offered as if they were pocket change, as natural as breathing for families who'd never had to budget for basic necessities. I sat in my folding chair against the back wall, invisible and increasingly angry, watching women who'd never worried about paying for school lunches congratulate each other on their generosity. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were literally putting price tags on their children's education while excluding the parents who worked hardest to afford that same education for their kids. These are the kinds of parents who make our school community strong, Jennifer beamed, her eyes sweeping the room but somehow never landing on me. Parents who understand that investing in our children's future requires real commitment. I sat in my folding chair, invisible and insulted, watching women who'd never worried about paying for school lunches congratulate each other on their generosity. My hands clenched in my lap as I thought about all the ways I supported Sophia's education that they couldn't see, the late nights helping with homework after exhausting shifts, the sacrifices I made to buy school supplies, the creativity required to stretch every dollar. After the meeting ended, I lingered in the empty room, automatically stacking chairs and cleaning up because it felt wrong to leave without helping, even after how I'd been treated. My mother had raised me to always leave a place better than I'd found it, and old habits die hard. The custodial staff wouldn't arrive until morning, and I knew from my own service industry experience how much easier it was to start the day with a clean workspace. That's when I noticed something that made my heart race, a folder left behind on Jennifer's table, marked, "Confidential Financial Information," in her precise handwriting. It had apparently slipped from her briefcase when she was gathering her things, and in her rush to continue networking in the parking lot, she hadn't noticed its absence. My first instinct was to run after her with it, but something made me pause. Maybe it was the humiliation still burning in my chest, or maybe it was simple curiosity about how this privileged world really operated behind its polished facade. Inside were bank statements for the PTA account, detailed budget projections for the next school year, correspondence with the district about state funding allocations, and vendor contracts for everything from playground equipment to fundraising events. But what caught my attention and made my blood run cold was a letter from the State Lottery Commission, dated just 2 weeks earlier. My hands trembled as I read the document. It was a notification about an unclaimed lottery prize, a ticket purchased at Ruby's Diner, where I worked, for a drawing 6 months ago. The winning amount was $127,000, and according to the letter, the claim period was about to expire. The ticket numbers looked familiar. Very familiar. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my photos until I found what I was looking for, a picture Sophia had taken of me holding a lottery ticket, making a silly face for her amusement. It was from her birthday 6 months ago, when I'd bought the ticket as a small celebration, a tiny hope that maybe our luck would change. The numbers matched exactly. My knees went weak as the reality sank in. I was holding documentation of a winning lottery ticket that I'd completely forgotten about, a ticket that was worth enough money to change everything for Sophia and me. But why was this letter in Jennifer Walsh's possession? As I dug deeper into the folder, I found my answer. Jennifer's husband worked for the State Lottery Commission. He'd been tracking unclaimed prizes, particularly looking for tickets purchased in low-income areas where winners might not realize their good fortune. The plan, outlined in several email exchanges, was to wait until the claim period nearly expired, then purchase the winning ticket location information and claim the prize through a legal loophole. They were essentially stealing lottery winnings from people who couldn't afford to lose them. The scheme was technically legal but morally bankrupt, exactly what I'd come to expect from Jennifer Walsh and her circle of privileged friends. I photographed every document with my phone, my hands shaking with a mixture of rage and excitement. Then I carefully returned everything to the folder and left it exactly as I'd found it. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years and drove to the state lottery office in downtown Chicago. The building was intimidating, all glass and marble, but I walked in with my winning ticket and my documentation with more confidence than I'd felt in years. Mrs. Santos, the claims officer said after verifying my ticket, "This is indeed a winning ticket worth $127,000. However, I should inform you that someone else inquired about this prize just yesterday." Someone else? I kept my voice steady. But it's my ticket. Yes, absolutely. The ticket is yours, and the prize is yours. I'm just noting that there was unusual interest in this particular prize. He processed my claim efficiently, explaining the tax implications and payment options. "Will you be taking the lump sum?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Definitely the lump sum." After taxes, I walked out of that building with a certified check for $89,000, more money than I'd ever imagined having at one time. The first thing I did was drive to Sophia's school. Principal Martinez greeted me in his office with the kind of warm respect that had been absent from the PTA meeting. "Mrs. Santos, what can I do for you today?" "I'd like to make a donation to the school," I said, placing the check on his desk. $50,000, specifically for the library renovation project. His eyes widened as he processed the amount. "Mrs. Santos, this is incredibly generous, but I have to ask, are you certain about this? This is a substantial sum." "I'm completely certain." I smiled, thinking about all the nights I'd brought Sophia to this library for free tutoring sessions, all the books we checked out because I couldn't afford to buy them, all the homework completed at these worn tables. This library changed my daughter's life. I want to help it change other children's lives too. Principal Martinez was quiet for a long moment, then reached for his phone. "Jennifer, could you come to my office please? We have some exciting news to share." When Jennifer Walsh entered the office 5 minutes later, her expression was politely curious until she saw me sitting across from the principal's desk. "Mrs. Santos has just made an extraordinary donation to our school," Principal Martinez announced. $50,000 for the library renovation. Jennifer's face cycled through multiple emotions: shock, confusion, suspicion, and finally a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "How wonderful," she managed. "That's quite unexpected. The school board has a policy," Principal Martinez continued, "that donations of this magnitude are recognized with permanent acknowledgement. Mrs. Santos, how would you feel about having the library renamed in your family's honor?" "The Santos Family Library," I said, testing how it sounded. "I think Sophia would like that." Jennifer's composure cracked slightly. "I'm sure there are procedures for this kind of thing. Background checks, committee approvals." "Actually," Principal Martinez interrupted, "for donations of this size, the decision can be made immediately by the school board. I'll be recommending approval at tonight's meeting." As we discussed the details of the renovation and the naming ceremony, I watched Jennifer struggle to maintain her pleasant facade. Her world was built on the assumption that people like me would always know our place, would always defer to people like her. That assumption had just been shattered. Word of my donation spread through the school community like wildfire. By the time I picked up Sophia that afternoon, she was practically bouncing with excitement. "Mom, is it true? Did you really donate money to have the library named after us?" "It's true," I confirmed, watching her face light up with pride. "But how? Where did you get that much money?" I explained about the lottery ticket, about forgetting to check the numbers, about discovering my win through an unexpected turn of events. What I didn't tell her was about Jennifer Walsh's scheme or the humiliation at the PTA meeting. Some battles are fought by adults, for children, without children needing to know the details. The library renovation took 3 months, during which I was invited to every planning meeting, every design session, every decision-making process. The PTA members who had ignored me before now sought my opinions with almost comical enthusiasm. "Maria, what do you think about the color scheme for the children's section?" Jennifer would ask, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I think we should ask the children," I'd respond diplomatically. After all, it's their library. The transformation was remarkable. New carpeting, modern lighting, comfortable reading nooks, updated technology, and thousands of new books created a space that rivaled libraries in wealthy districts. But my favorite addition was a small plaque near the entrance that read, "The Santos Family Library, where every child's dreams take flight." The dedication ceremony was held on a sunny Saturday in February. The entire school community turned out, families, teachers, administrators, and even some district officials. Sophia cut the ribbon with oversized scissors while photographers captured the moment. "I'd like to say a few words," I said when Principal Martinez offered me the microphone. The crowd quieted as I looked out at faces that had once dismissed me, faces that now watched with respectful attention. "6 months ago, I felt invisible in this community," I began. "I felt like my contributions to my daughter's education didn't matter because they weren't measured in dollars. I've learned that sometimes the universe has a funny way of proving us wrong about our own worth." I paused, my eyes finding Jennifer Walsh in the crowd. She stood with her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "This library isn't just about books and computers," I continued. "It's about the idea that every child deserves access to knowledge, regardless of their family's income. It's about creating a space where a single mother's daughter can dream as big as anyone else's child." The applause was warm and sustained. Several parents approached me afterward with genuine enthusiasm about collaborating on future projects. For the first time since moving to this district, I felt like I belonged. But the real victory came later that evening, when Sophia and I had the library to ourselves for a private tour. "Mom," she said, running her fingers along the spines of brand new books, "I'm proud to be a Santos." "I'm proud to be a Santos too," I replied, thinking about my grandmother who'd immigrated with nothing but hope, about my mother who'd worked 3 jobs to keep us fed, about the generations of Santos women who'd fought for their families with dignity and determination. The lottery money I'd kept for ourselves allowed me to reduce my hours at the diner and return to school part-time to pursue my teaching degree, something I'd dreamed about for years but never thought possible. Sophia's grades improved even more, partly due to her increased confidence but mostly due to having more quality time with a mother who wasn't constantly exhausted. Jennifer Walsh and I developed a polite working relationship over the following months, though the dynamic between us had permanently shifted. She still organized elaborate events and managed PTA business with impressive efficiency, but she no longer dismissed the contributions of working parents or treated volunteerism as a competition. In fact, during one school board meeting, she publicly supported my proposal for a free after-school tutoring program staffed by parent volunteers from all economic backgrounds. Mrs. Santos has shown us that valuable contributions come in many forms, she said, her voice carrying what sounded like genuine respect. We need to make sure every parent feels welcome and valued in our school community. It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement. Sometimes that's enough. A year later, as I write this story, the Santos Family Library is thriving beyond anything I could have imagined. It's become a gathering place for the entire community, hosting everything from children's reading circles to adult literacy classes to support groups for single parents. The tutoring program I proposed has helped dozens of students improve their grades, and several parents have gone on to pursue their own educational goals after discovering their passion for teaching through volunteer work. Most importantly, Sophia has blossomed into a confident young woman who understands that her family's worth isn't measured by designer clothes or luxury cars, but by integrity, perseverance, and the courage to stand up for what's right. The other day, she came home from school with news that made my heart sing. Mom, guess what? Mrs. Peterson asked me to be the student representative on the new library advisory committee. She said I have the best understanding of how the library serves all the different kids at our school. What did you tell her? I asked. I told her I'd be honored, but only if the committee includes kids from all different backgrounds, not just the ones whose parents are on the PTA. That's my daughter, already learning that true leadership means lifting others up, not standing on them to reach higher ground. If you've made it this far in my story, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible in a community where you belonged? Have you ever been dismissed because of your circumstances rather than valued for your character? Have you ever discovered that your worth was so much greater than anyone gave you credit for? Please share your experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear about times when you proved people wrong about what you were capable of achieving. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We're here to share stories of people who refused to let others define their value, who found strength in unexpected places, and who used their success to lift up their communities. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is show up authentically in spaces where you're not initially welcome. Sometimes the greatest revenge is not revenge at all, but the kind of success that forces people to reevaluate their assumptions about worth and value. That folding chair in the back of the room wasn't punishment, it was preparation. It taught me that my place in any community isn't determined by where others seat me, but by how I choose to contribute once I'm there. The Santos Family Library will serve children for generations to come, but its greatest lesson isn't about literacy or learning. It's about the truth that every person has value, every contribution matters, and sometimes the most unlikely people are exactly who a community needs to become its best self. They didn't save me a seat at that PTA meeting, but in the end, I didn't need their seat. I built my own table.